Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on how to receive and give feedback more effectively. I'm Danielle Romano, Managing Editor at Convenience Store News, and I'll be your moderator for today's program. We'll get started in just a few minutes, but first I have some quick housekeeping items I'd like to share with you before we begin. The materials in this webinar have been reviewed by our editorial staff. However, the views of our speaker and their organization are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Convenience Store News or its publisher, Ensemble IQ. Next, I want to let you know that one of our goals is to make this session as interactive as possible. So you can use the Q&A function on the left side of your screen below the presenter headshots to ask questions or submit comments during the program. I'll pose any questions you might have on your behalf, and your identity will remain confidential to the audience. If we don't have time to answer all of your questions, we'll follow up with you after the session concludes via email. You can also use the Q&A section if you have any technical questions about the webinar itself, and you'll get a direct reply from our producer. And finally, at the end of the event, we'll have an evaluation survey. We encourage you to provide feedback using this feature. And if you wish to view this webinar or share it with your colleagues, a replay of it will be available within 2 hours on many platforms. Presentation slides are also available under the Event Resources tab. And now onto our presentation. Convenience Store News' Future Leaders in Convenience program, which is now in its 8th year, is designed to celebrate and help develop the next generation of C-store industry leaders. Our Future Leaders Learning Lab series equips participants with techniques and tools that they can use to take their careers to the next level. Our Learning Lab session today focuses on giving and receiving feedback, which is one of the most powerful tools we have to build trust, deepen engagement, and drive continuous improvement. Here to help us navigate feedback with greater ease and confidence is Jen Rekla, a coach, trainer, and outdoor enthusiast whose mission is to awaken passion, joy, and the spirit of adventure in leadership. With more than 15 years of experience in leadership, organizational development, and coaching, she specializes in creating growth experiences that inspire and equip leaders to navigate their workload effectively, lead with confidence, and build high-performing, engaged, and resilient teams. Jen, as always, I'm so happy to see you.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Danielle, and I appreciate the invitation to be able to come and talk all about feedback with you today. Every leader, team, organization that I start working with has a challenge with feedback. I hear feedback is hard. I've been told I'm too direct. I don't want to upset anyone. I've been told I'm too wishy-washy. So when I start working with an organization, this is the question that I always start with. What is your biggest challenge with giving and or receiving feedback? And some of the themes that I tend to hear are, I don't like conflict, so I avoid it, or I take feedback too personally. It's hard for it not to stick to me. It's hard to balance being direct with also showing care and compassion for the individual. I don't want to come off too firm or too harsh. The timing of it, my tone, being able to give it clearly, constructively, just having overall confidence in delivery, and then managing my emotions when I'm giving it or when I'm receiving it. So I want you to, as we start this, think about what is my biggest challenge? Is it with giving feedback? Is it with receiving feedback? Is it a little bit of both? And I also want to start off with calling out that feedback can be downright uncomfortable. I can recall many times that I've given constructive feedback and my heart was racing, my body was slightly shaking, I could feel the heat under my arms. And the first time that I had to do a 360 assessment where I was getting feedback from staff members, my team members, my boss, and different customers, I was so nervous. I had strong relationships with many of these individuals, but I knew I might hear some tough truths, and I 100% did. Now, that feedback might have been hard to hear, but it helped me to grow. Yes, it was a little emotional. I'm sure that you've experienced that too. And I can't promise that feedback is ever going to be comfy. You may always experience some discomfort. What I can provide you with is some tools, some frameworks, strategies to help you build your confidence with feedback. And using these tools over the years of leading teams, of coaching others, it's really what's helped me feel less discomfort and be much more effective in my approach. The intent is not to try all of these things I'm going to share with you all at once. Really focus in on what you think will have the biggest impact on minimizing your biggest challenge. So have that in mind as we go through this. And I think it's important for us to begin with the end in mind. Knowing your biggest challenge, that helps you zoom in on what you need to address, but it's also helpful to have a vision for the future. What do you want a positive culture of feedback to look like? How will it benefit you, your team, your organization? What results will you see with this positive culture of feedback? So really think about that. Now, I've been working with an executive team for many years, and really one of the focus areas that we've had more recently is around feedback. How do we build this positive culture of feedback? And these words, these descriptors, that's what they've come up with. So I'm sharing it with you in case the picture of your ideal isn't clear yet. You can use this because I think it really encompasses everything that I would want to see in a positive feedback culture. So this is something you can use as a place to start. Now, there are a lot of results that are tied to effective feedback. This is actually a former team of mine. We not only saw metrics around trust and engagement increase with our internal team, but having this positive culture of feedback, it had an impact on our key performance indicators, those goals that we're striving for our organization as well. Now, feedback, it wasn't the only contributor to our success, but it was a very important component. It led to deeper connections as a team and more innovation. But the real proof of our culture happened in a team meeting. I clearly remember this. One of the team members, they gave an update and I asked a question, but the way that I asked the question, it sounded more aggressive than curious. And one of the other team members say, "Whoa, that was harsh." And I paused and I said, "Oh no, was it?" And the rest of the team members said, "Yeah, Jen, that was kind of harsh." They told me, they pointed out in a very polite and loving way that the way that I came off was just a little too aggressive in that moment. And I'm so glad they did, because I immediately apologized. I laid out that that was not my intent. That's not the impact that I wanted to have. And we were able to have a really productive conversation the rest of that team meeting. Had we not had that safety, there would probably have been a lot of rumblings behind the scenes that I never would have even known about. And it was never my intention to show up that way. What really helped the team get to this place of a strong culture of feedback was focusing on 3 areas: recognizing your team in ways that resonate, giving constructive feedback that drives growth, and then receiving feedback with grace and confidence. So these are the 3 areas that I'm going to dig a little bit more into for you today and share some tips, some tools, some strategies. Before I do that, it's really important for us to talk about mindset. Mindset is the foundation of being effective at feedback. Our mindsets, these are the lens with which we see the world. They're heavily influenced by our past experiences. These experiences, they've shaped our thoughts, our beliefs, our attitudes, and they really drive our behavior, our action, and our results. So we've got to get this right first. And I think the most important mindset to really step into when we're talking about giving feedback, receiving feedback, is a growth mindset. This is something that was coined by Carol Dweck. She has a book called Mindset, highly recommend. A belief that your growth mindset is this belief that abilities, intelligence, it can be developed through dedication, effort, and continuous learning. Everyone can change and grow through application and experience. We are in control of our skills. They can be developed and improved. A fixed mindset, on the other hand, that assumes that abilities are static. that individuals have a certain level of intelligence or talent, and that's it. You're either a born leader or you're not. That's the belief of a fixed mindset. When we're in a growth mindset, we hear feedback as a chance to get better. And we give it in a way that helps others grow too, because we believe they can improve. Now, if we have a fixed mindset going into feedback, it can feel like a personal attack. We're on the receiving end, and that makes it harder to receive openly, and it's harder to share in a helpful way. So we really want to step into the belief that failure and challenges are opportunities and possibilities. So as you embark on this journey of feedback, really think about, where am I at when it comes to a growth mindset? Myself, my team, the individuals around me. It's really important to ask yourself, am I stepping into a growth mindset most of the time? Am I stepping into it when I'm going into these feedback conversations? Because when you lean into a growth mindset, it makes the next steps that I'm going to share with you a whole lot easier and more sustainable. So we really want to step into that growth mindset first. So beginning with recognition, this is actually, I remember I taught a workshop many years ago around employee engagement, and I shared how appreciation is one of the top drivers for employee engagement. And I remember one of the leaders attending asked this question: why should I appreciate them for doing their job? And so I responded, do you want them to continue to do their job? And the reason I said that is because when we give positive feedback to individuals, it reinforces the behavior that we want to see over and over again. And we want to see people at least meeting expectations. If you don't acknowledge when someone meets those expectations, how do they know that they're on track? It doesn't cost anything for us to share, thank someone that presented at a meeting, or they got the report out on time, they're following the script on customer calls. It's really important that we are appreciating people regularly, because the return on that is tremendous. It strengthens trust, it increases motivation, and it boosts performance. This is actually a postcard. I still have this up on my bulletin board. This was a teammate back in 2018. I received a thank you note from her, and it still sticks with me today. She was a new member of the team. She gave it to me in the first month of working there. She knew I loved Wonder Woman. She even incorporated the talents of Wonder Woman into the narrative that's on the back of that card. Rereading it when I was prepping for this, I mean, it still warms my soul. Because when appreciation is genuine, when it's specific and meaningful, it lasts even 7 years later. So that's why this is so important. And I'm going to share a model with you that I think is a really helpful way to frame positive feedback recognition to ensure that you are making an impact with it. So this acronym I'm going to share with you, it's SMART. The first step is to ensure that your recognition appreciation is sincere, it's genuine. Insincerity is going to destroy trust. So we want to make sure that it's sincere. We want to make sure that it is tied to the mission, the values, your goals. It's tied back to the work. So it has meaning and connection to their profession, to what they're doing on a regular basis, to what we're trying to accomplish as a team or a company. That's really important. We want to make sure that we're not delivering feedback the same way all the time, that we're not always just sending an email or always just saying a Wonder Woman postcard every time we're trying to appreciate someone. So ensuring that it's fresh, that there's variability in how you're recognizing people, and that it's creative. When we're talking about relevant, this means it is personal to the person. There are some individuals that hate public recognition. It is embarrassing for them. It just makes them want to run and hide. So knowing your people and what types of appreciation are impactful for them is really important. And then lastly, we want to make sure that we're not waiting to their performance review to share it with them, that we're really timely. It's in the moment appreciation. It's within a day or two of when you notice the behavior or the presentation that you want to recognize them on. So this is a great model to be able to recognize effectively. Build recognition into the workflow. I used to have a task on my calendar where I would make sure when I was a formal leader to recognize at least one team member a week. So I had that reminder, build in calendar time to show appreciation, write those thank you notes, make it part of your team agenda, doing shout outs or kudos at the beginning. Your one-to-ones, when you have one-to-one conversations with your direct reports, making sure that you're always providing some type of recognition of their work in there as well. And speaking of calendars, I know it's not for many months, but there is an Employee Appreciation Day on March 7th. Mark your calendars. It's a great day to do something collective for your team. I think one year I wrote hand wrote notes and sent them in the mail to all the individuals. Another year I knew which coffee places they liked or fast food restaurants. So I got them a small gift card and sent those. So do something for your individuals on Employee Appreciation Day. It's a great opportunity to do that collective recognition. All right, so now I'm going to talk about giving feedback. And when it comes to giving feedback, there are a lot of great frameworks available. I'm going to share a few of those. But before I do that, this is the most important piece of giving constructive feedback, starting with intent. So before you even share that feedback, it's really important to identify what is my intent by giving this feedback. It is less about what you say than how you say it. Both are important, but your intention is going to speak louder than words. So if you're going in with an unhealthy intent of, I know this person is wrong and I'm going to prove them wrong because I'm right, or it's to shame or blame or punish, that conversation, no matter how perfectly you crafted the constructive feedback, it's not going to go well because they're going to see through your intent and then they're going to go on the defensive. So you really want to take a step back, ask yourself, what is my intent, and shift to more healthy intentions. Like, I want to strengthen the relationship. I want to support their growth. I want to help them improve. I want to create a great experience for our customers. So you want to step into those more healthy intentions. It's going to make that conversation go a lot smoother. So I want you to think about, this is something you can do on your own. Think about someone that you need to give constructive feedback to, and before you deliver that message, before you write it down and craft what that message is going to look like, think about, what is my intent? What do I want for myself in this conversation? What do I want for the other person? What do I want for the both of us? So that is the first step. Now I'm going to share a few frameworks with you as well. This idea of starting with intent actually came from Crucial Conversations and Crucial Accountability. This particular book, Crucial Accountability, I think is a better framework for constructive feedback. It's really about having productive, healthy conversations around accountability, ensuring people are meeting their expectations and beyond. And the way the message is crafted is, here is what I observed, sharing the behavior or what the misstep was. And then here is the expectation, and here's the gap. So this is one framework that you could use. Another one is called Radical Candor. Kim Scott wrote a book called Radical Candor. And in this framework, it's really about giving direct, honest feedback while still demonstrating care for the person you're giving feedback to. So this is a great one. If your challenge is balance with directness and compassion, this is a great model for you. It really emphasizes being specific, being sincere and kind when delivering both praise and criticism. It's really finding that balance between being too soft and too harsh. The other thing that is really important in her book, she mentions that ruinous empathy out of all of these categories is the worst, because while you think you're caring for the person deeply, you're staying silent. So they don't know what feedback you have for them, versus obnoxious aggression, which, yes, they're not doing it with a lot of care. It might do damage to the relationship, but the message has still been delivered. So it's just something to think about. If you're being kind, but you're being silent, it's not really having the impact that you want for the individual. Then the last model I'm going to share with you is Situation Behavior Impact, or SBI. This is the one that I think the most people that I've worked with in the past are familiar with. It's a really simple framework, a good one to start with if you are just getting started and building your feedback skills. And what this is what this stands for is, first, you're describing what the situation is. You're giving context and you're being specific. So last week during our team meeting, when we were discussing the project deadline, so the person knows when this situation happened, then you share the behavior that you observed without any judgment. I noticed you interrupted several team members when they were sharing their updates, and you raised your voice to express your frustration. And then the last piece is the impact that it had on other individuals, team members on the project. As a result of all of that, some team members stopped sharing their feedback, and the meeting felt less productive. It made it difficult to explore solutions together. So those are three models that you can tap into a little bit more. But remember, start with your intentions. Crafting the message is the easy part. It's really the intention that gets most leaders in trouble. And just a quick, this is like my best little secret when it comes to feedback. Ask them first. Ask them to self-reflect. How do you think the presentation went? What's something you thought you did well? Any areas you would do different next time? How do you, this isn't how do you that customer interaction go, or how did you think that that meeting went? This is not going to work in every situation, but I've used it in many interactions, and I'd say 9 times out of 10, the individual says what you were planning to say anyways, and then you can just validate and add your own perspective to the conversation. So the last area that I'm going to dive into is receiving feedback. Providing education on giving feedback is really important. It can help, but it is not going to solve the problem alone. It's the receiver that decides what they're going to let in, what they're going to make of it, and whether and how they choose to change. So this is a skill we all need to get better at. And there isn't a ton of research or books related to the skill of receiving feedback. This one's my favorite that I've stumbled upon so far. Thanks for the feedback. Highly recommend this one. The research really shows that individuals who can get really good at receiving constructive feedback, they adapt more quickly to roles, they have higher satisfaction in their work and on their teams, and they see better performance rating. So the data really shows that if we can get good at this, it's going to have an impact on a lot of other areas. They also went and tried to figure out if people didn't receive feedback, what was the reason why? What got in the way? And what they found in their research is there's really 3 triggers that pop up for us when it comes to receiving feedback. We've heard the feedback and either we say, that's not true. So we're really challenging the truth of the content of the feedback. Or perhaps the person and we don't have a great relationship. I don't trust you. Who are you to give me this feedback? So it's more of a relationship issue. Or the other trigger that pops up for us is, wow, the feedback you're giving me is really threatening how I see myself, the story that I tell myself. So when I'm sharing this with you, I want you to think about it from your own perspective as a receiver and how others may respond when they're receiving feedback from you. So that defensiveness that you see when you give people feedback, it might be because of one of these triggers. And I'm very briefly going to share with each trigger some strategies that you can use to help mitigate them. So when it comes to the truth trigger, the things that we want to focus on, really, when it comes down to it, it is curiosity. We want to get curious, and as much as we can, we don't want to initially accept or reject the feedback. So we're just going to let it sink in, and then we're going to ask more questions about it. And this is really hard to do because our initial reaction might be, this is wrong, and we become defensive. But as much as we can, we say, well, tell me more about this. What does this mean? Can you give me some specific examples? And then, even if the feedback feels wrong, find any element that might be useful. Even if you still disagree at the end, now you at least understand where that person's coming from. So the main idea here is get curious, ask questions, and dig a little bit deeper before accepting or rejecting the feedback. Now, the relationship trigger, this is one of the hardest ones because it's your belief that either the other person is not treating me well, or it's your belief that this is not a credible source. I mean, you're not the expert, I'm the expert. Who are you to say this to me? So when this comes up, the first thing for us to do is figure out what is the relationship issue here? Is it content? Is it the relationship? And if it is the relationship, is it because of the way they're treating me? Is it because of credibility? So you want to identify what is that relationship issue and then separate that from the content. So content is one component of this, and then the relationship is another component of this. And you might have to have two separate conversations. One to address the content of the feedback, getting curious, digging in a little bit more, and then also having a tough conversation about the relationship dynamics between the two of you. The last piece with identity, this is challenging how I see myself, who I think I am, what I think I'm capable of. It really hits when it feels like it's threatening our sense of worth. And when this happens, the first strategy really is to regulate our emotional response. This helps with not accepting or rejecting the feedback. And the book that I always recommend for people is called The Illustrated Happiness Trap. The Illustrated Happiness Trap, great book for helping you to defuse emotions and really take a more objective approach to processing those emotions. Leading into that growth mindset, definitely an area that is a helpful strategy when this identity trigger comes up. You're framing feedback as an opportunity to improve rather than a judgment on your worth. And then finally, strengthening your resilience. Think about past experiences where feedback really helps you grow. Build your confidence and really build your confidence from there and your ability to be able to handle it because you've handled it before. You've gotten through it before. So we want to recognize people in meaningful ways using that SMART model, marking it on our calendars, focusing on our intent. That is so important. That's the first step before we're giving that more constructive feedback. And then understanding our triggers and using the strategies to receive feedback more effectively in the future. Those are the three things that you want to focus on to help you build that positive culture of feedback. Now, I told you in the beginning, don't try to do it all at once. So really think about what's that one thing that I want to try next. Is it to read one of the books that I mentioned, write out my intent for that next constructive feedback conversation, or ask my team how they like to be recognized. This is my information. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I talk about leadership all the time, and I have a couple of resources related to feedback. So if you email me directly, I am happy to send you those additional resources related to the topic today. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Danielle. Thank you.
Jen, thank you so much for sharing your insights. I definitely plan to look into some of those books and some of those resources that you shared. And I'm really excited about that. So before we move on to today's Q&A, just a quick reminder to the audience that if you have any questions for Jen, you can submit those using the Q&A feature on the left side of your screen. And it looks like we do have time for one or two that came in. So Jen, one of the first questions was, where do I start building my feedback skills?
Yeah, so the first place, well, I'd say the easiest place for most people is probably in the appreciation and recognition, right? Most people like to receive appreciation, recognition. So finding out how people on your team like to be recognized is a great start for that. And I actually have a survey. So anyone that wants that material, please reach out to me directly and I'm happy to share it with you. It's something I use with previous teams. The hard skill, though, we all should probably start with is receiving feedback. If we can receive feedback better as leaders, then we're more likely to ask for it regularly. And that role modeling of you being able to receive feedback, act on that feedback, that is going to create a culture where other people want to do that as well.
Awesome. And another important question that I think came in is, what if someone responds poorly after I give them constructive feedback? That's a good one.
Yeah, this is probably needs a whole nother 30 minutes to 2 hours to really go into this. So I'll give a quick answer. When someone goes on the defensive, they're not feeling safe in the conversation. Either they one of those triggers was hit, an identity, relationship, right? Or content, truth issue. And in that moment, you want to try to make that person feel safe. And so one of the best ways to do that is to lay out your intent out loud. So if you haven't shared that intent with them, let's say your intent is, I really want to see you succeed in this role. Say that out loud. Make it really clear that you have positive intents and you believe they have the ability to grow and that you are there to support them. So that's kind of a quick tip to help manage that.
Okay, great. All right. Well, it looks like we're up on our time. So Jen, thank you again so much for sharing your knowledge. And thank you for our audience for your time. We hope you're leaving today with some new insights and some tools that you can apply immediately to give and receive feedback more effectively. Please remember to fill out the evaluation survey. It will automatically appear on your screen. We always appreciate the feedback. And be sure to check out our website for registration for our next Future Leaders Learning Lab webinar, which is taking place November 4th at 2 p.m. And that will explore ways to beat burnout. So thanks again, Jen, and to everybody, and have a good day.